Go ahead.
And a 1, and a 2, never tire seeing that. It just gets you hyped, especially during the holiday season.
We did that before Marvel stole it from us. We were first.
We were definitely first. But it just gets you hyped, that something special.
And it's like a Christmas thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that always came on before the Peanuts special.
The Peanuts were...
And the Garfield special.
And the Rudolph.
California Raisins.
Yes. There's just very specific. Something that hit me on the way to the studio here that was a little bit sad. Had to drive by 2 different malls. And Usually, you would never go near a mall this time of year, and they were both like haunted houses. There was no traffic. There was more people looking at lights, at the trail lights, than there was at the mall.
Jeff, I think your speaker's still open over there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I hear your speaker coming through.
Oh, I'm muted on my phone. Mute.
Oh, that's my speaker.
I was gonna say, I didn't hear it.
All right, my bad. All right,
No,
continue.
all good.
Trail of
No.
Lights. Trail of Lights is
just
like a haunted
thinking.
house.
No, yeah, the malls they were dead. It's like the Highland Mall was definitely dead, but even Barton, like I had to avoid Barton Creek because of the trail of lights. But then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go right near the mall, clear sailing.
Yeah.
What do we do with malls? I mean, Christmas was huge. That was the busy season for malls. You go see Santa, you go shopping, you go hang out with your friends, and now
Get a pretzel. An
get
Orange
a pretzel,
Julius.
yeah, an Orange Julius, nothing. I don't know. It was just a little. It was a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Growing up in the '80s, the mall was everything. So, what else did we got going? I don't know. I'm still definitely trying to shake off this tri-state funk of driving, even though it did take longer. Traffic here doesn't seem as bad as it does between New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. It does. Somebody's got to do something there. We need teleportation. That's what we need.
Need portals.
We need portals, teleportation, something. Because I don't know if you guys, the last time you've been on the bridge, one of the bridges going from between Brooklyn and Staten Island's $25 now. That's like going to Six Flags.
How far is that? How far is that? Like, how far are you traveling?
Oh, the bridge? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not much
Yeah.
bigger than the Capitol Bridge over here on 360.
It's not a huge one.
No.
Jeff, introduce our guest.
Yes. Well, I think I was waiting because I didn't want to spoil it because we have an official sting for him now. So, yep, there we are. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to us. And then welcome back to the Geek Commander.
I am the Geek Commander.
Yeah. What's up?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Yes.
Thanks for coming. I
Yeah.
know traffic was bad. Parking is bad. Everything was bad, but you're here.
But you made it. And you got a really dope shirt. You got Clark Griswold in
Yep.
8-bit.
Gotta have that Griswold.
Yeah. Got the spirit. Rocking the Dos Incredibles hat, too. So, what have you guys been doing? Like, what's going on here in Texas? What am I missing?
A lot of not quite cold yet weather.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I still slip into hoodie mode, and then you realize that I'm definitely overbooking my back.
I mean, I think we've been taking it easy. I feel like every time I hear from you, you're like struggling to get through something.
Yeah.
I mean, just the idea of crossing a bridge to get somewhere sounds crazy to me. Like you have to like solve a riddle for a troll and then cross that bridge.
You've got to pay the toll troll.
Yeah.
So one day, got going from the airport between Jersey and then had to go to Connecticut. I went through Staten Island, Newark, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Westchester, and then actually into Connecticut. And when I say this, just to give you concept of mileage, we're talking about 90 miles. And that was a 5.5 hour journey.
Wow.
And it was really expensive. If you make a wrong turn there, you could be paying $25 on like for wrong turn. Sorry, Easy Pass is still going to charge you to get on and off on there. But there's some myths, man. I want to bust. I was talking about this earlier. Let's bust this myth really quick. The best pizza in New York. Don't get me wrong. There's great pizza in New York. I think people are so distracted on who has the best pizza. Flying under the radar is they don't have shit for tortillas up there. Like nothing. Mario, we were talking about this. I don't want to talk about the pizza. All right? We get it. There's something in the water, but the water is affecting tortillas negatively.
What is in the water that makes the pizza good? I've never.
I don't know.
Desperation.
Desperation, perspiration, something. But I'm not worried about the pizza anymore. I'm worried about the tortillas. You can't get nothing. I mean, you can't whip up a quesadilla, breakfast taco. It just doesn't exist.
I mean, what are the grocery stores up there, up north? It's got like Wawa.
Oh no, you got Stop and Shop. You got ShopRite. I mean, you can still get a Whole Foods up there, but they're just
Yeah, but I mean, what does a ShopRite tortilla look like?
not good, pal.
Yeah.
Like desperation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not good. Not good at all.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that's difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so-
difficult here in Austin. I told you, Luciolotti came up with this theory that all the Austin taco places have come up with a truce where no one will make actual homemade tortillas.
I love that.
As long as nobody does it, we're all good. We all take care of each other.
I like it. It's like the old pro wrestling territories, but it's the tortilla territory.
Exactly.
It's like, this is a tortilla territory. We're not going to let that leak up there. Another myth I want to bust is when a film gets released up there and says first in New York and L.A. And it was the Iron Claw, which we're going to talk about later. It says showing in New York and L.A. first, and I was there. I'm like, okay, I couldn't find it. I think it's a work. I think you were getting work. Like, is it just like one theater up in like? Are they talking about Buffalo, New York? Because it wasn't in Manhattan. I was like right there. I was like, it was not there.
Yeah.
I think that's a work too. I don't know.
You think of all the places, the Draft House up there would at least have it as well too.
Yeah. So, and ironically, the Brooklyn Draft House had it last night where we saw it, and that's where they did the live. But we also had it here. So, I don't know. Broadway's still in effect, and we talked about this last time. I don't think, Brian, you weren't here. That all the Broadway now is lit up with plays that are converted from movies. Like I saw The Shark is Broken, which is fantastic. I think we talked about this, the whole Ian Shaw got his dad's, man, he looks so much like him. Mm-hmm. And he got his journals and he did it up and it was great. But we walked out, it had Mean Girls, Back to the Future, Lion King, The Notebook. You were just The Outsiders. They're going to do an Outsiders play now too. It was like coming soon. I was like, this is all it is now.
Are they going to incorporate that kid that did the audition?
Which one?
The Outsiders audition. You know which one? You know that viral video?
No.
You've never seen the viral video where the kid auditions for Outsiders?
No, I did not see it.
You've never seen? Do you know what I'm talking about, Brian? Oh man. Okay, let me look this up. Keep talking about.
Outsiders. Is he like reading with like C. Thomas Howell?
He basically like did a cold call audition to. At some point, Stanley Kubrick was going to direct it, and he basically did a tape and sent it to Stanley Kubrick auditioning for Ponyboy. And it went viral. It was one of the early viral videos. You don't remember that one?
No.
All right, let me look it up.
Let me pull my mic back here a little bit. Too.
Oh yeah, you're a little on top of the mic there.
Popping.
Yeah. Let me look this up real quick. Keep talking about what you're talking about.
You know, and I was a little bit worried. You know, we're talking about all the plays that are becoming movies, but I was a little worried that this Christmas season seemed pretty light on content. That I feel like there wasn't going to be a bunch of films, but as we're now in the season, I feel like it's starting to fall into place a little bit. So we're going to talk about, Poor Things. We're going to talk about Wonka. We can talk about Aquaman if you want, but does it feel a little bit light on movies? Like usually I feel like there's 4 or 5 movies on Christmas Day.
I mean, I think that the promotion, the marketing is light, but I mean, there's quite we're getting the new Color Purple, which I had only I'm usually on top of movies,
right?
But I saw the trailer for the first time like 2 weeks ago and didn't know it was coming, and it actually looks good. But there's a lot of stuff coming out like on Christmas Day even, but I just didn't know about it.
So they're cutting back on marketing.
Well, like I said, we got Aquaman coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you said you didn't even see a poster at the South
I didn't see anything. No, nothing. Like they were promoting Rebel Moon, and Aquaman's a big Marvel property.
And Rebel Moon's not even going to be in theaters.
No, it's not. And they were handing out posters. They took my photo. They sent my photo straight to sorry, what's the name of the guy who owns Netflix? That guy got my photo.
Reed Hastings,
whatever it is, the cinema killer.
He should. Well, you know what he should do? He should buy some malls and just throw some screens up.
So, are we to assume that Aquaman is bad? It's just terrible.
I haven't seen any of the ratings on it at all. Or
no,
reviews.
they got an embargo on.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
They really are pushing the whole Lethal Weapon vibe. Remember they said this is going to be like Lethal Weapon, or they're just going for that brotherly vibe. They're really playing that angle up.
Yeah.
You guys are not. I'm going to go see it. I got to see it to the end. It's the last one. It's the last DCEU.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, out of everybody who was in the cast, maybe except for Gal Gadot, I mean, he was the one who was having the most fun playing a member of the Justice League. Like, you could just tell he was having a blast doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think even that's going to help carry the movie a little bit, despite, what the story may be. I mean, I still have somewhat hopes that it might be good. I mean, I did enjoy the first one. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to build on this one a little bit. Just because, that first one is pretty much a showcase for him, and he really kind of led that movie, which was nice. He pulled it off, so I'm hoping he can do it again. I mean, it sucks that if it does well, it's not going to do anything. We're not going to see any more of it, but I mean, it'd be a nice way of closing out that chapter, at least on a somewhat high note.
James Gunn already told us this movie means nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
This movie's pointless. It's like, and Warner Brothers just decided, well, if it's pointless, let's not even promote it. Whatever.
Yeah, no posters then if it's pointless.
Yeah.
Well, because, I mean, let's face it, The Flash killed it. The Flash had a negative effect on Blue Beetle, and then, of course, I think it's going to have a negative effect on this. But, I think you said it best. I think Jason Momoa has enough goodwill towards him. I mean, he's everything you read about him, he's a good guy. Like you said, he's having fun. I think people are going to give him a little bit more of a chance than they gave Ezra Miller. Although I'm sure Ezra was having a good time when he was committing crimes.
Yeah. When he was choking that lady, you were like, he's having a great time.
Yeah, I don't think he was not enjoying it, or else he wouldn't have done it, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, Gunn really enjoyed. I mean, he brought him into Peacemaker, so in that finale of Peacemaker, we saw him and Barry Allen show up and whatnot. But you could kind of tell he was even having fun playing with that, actually dropping like an F-bomb and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
I look, this is my theory. I kind of feel like James Wan, who is a brilliant director, he's a really good director. And I think that working on these studio comic book movies, you hear the stories. It's a process. People get tired. It's a grueling process. I kind of think he got tired of working on it and made Aquaman so crazy that he would not get rehired. Because it's just like, that movie's nuts. You know what I mean? Like, I had a hard time following it. I didn't know. And then you get to the octopus playing the drums, and you're like, what is this movie supposed to be? You know what I mean? And somehow it made $1 billion. It was just that era when every comic book movie was making $1 billion.
I think people were really excited since, thanks to Entourage, that people really wanted to see Aquaman come to screen for real. Like, it seemed so far-fetched. Like, oh, no, only it happened in Entourage, it can't happen in real life, and then it did.
Yeah.
And I think that had a lot to do with it.
I would have liked to see James Cameron's Aquaman. Starring whoever.
Well, we know he knows how to make the blue water.
He does.
He does know how to do that.
Yeah.
Do you think, guys, that there's going to be a negative effect with Amber Heard?
I mean, I think that's going to be part of it as well too. I think the perfect storm of it, the DCU completely changing its path going forward. You had all the down publicity from Ezra Miller, and then you also had her as well too.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be kind of an experiment, if you will, of, even though it's a sequel to a major property, there's really no telling how it's going to go with the limited publicity they've given for it. The footage, from what I've seen at least, looks interesting, but there's lots of movies that look interesting in a trailer, and then you get there and it's just dog water.
A car crash looks interesting.
Yeah.
She was in one, for a quick millisecond in the first trailer. You saw, blink it if you miss. And I don't think she was she might have the same thing in the second trailer. So even though they took the stand saying they're not going to cut her out because of Elon threatening him, but I think they also realized we better play this down. Like last time, there was had Ezra Miller come to the red carpet and press palms and wave at people, which probably turned a lot of people off. But again, I want to see it through. I wish James Gunn would have just let me just do something at the end of the movie and just I'm going to make you guys a surprise. Post-credit, final post-credit for the DCEU, the second one, just go just for that. And let him he could have directed something for a 15, 30-second screen. And just what's going to come next? How come they didn't do that? I mean, I guess they don't have anything ready at all due to the strike.
I mean, he's already been working on lots of stuff. I don't think he wants any connection. He kind of shoehorned the cameos into Peacemaker because it was a nice little nod. But now that he's fully in charge, I think he wants to do a clean break and really just start from ground zero.
I agree. And I think he's kind of working from below 500. You know what I mean? I think that DCEU, and I think comic books, movies in general, right now have a bad rap. I think a lot of folks are tired of them. Maybe not just comic book movies, but like IP movies. But I just think it's going to take a big swing and a big hit to really pull people back in. Because Aquaman, it's not coming out. There's no advertising. I have no interest in seeing it. You know what I mean? And it's like I get pulled into the Zeitgeist movie every week. You know, I'll have no intent of seeing whatever the Zeitgeist movie is that week. Thursday night comes, it's like, okay, well, I'll get tickets to see. You know,
Right.
And I have no interest in Aquaman.
Well, I think part of the thing too, especially with Gunn being in charge, is he's a good example of what was working for Marvel that has stopped working. Is Marvel is great at finding directors with unique visions, but very rarely do they let them go in on that. And Gunn was one of the exceptions, which is why we got Guardians. Because honestly, the proof for Guardians 3 was this year. I mean, like, people had been kind of burnt out, but Guardians 3 comes out, and it's still very much a James Gunn movie.
Oh, and it was great.
Very much so.
And it kind of captured the zeitgeist a little bit again. It brought kind of like it had kind of eased the soothing of Ant-Man, Quantumania, and a few other films, to where it kind of brought them back, and they're like, all right, well, these can be good if the right person's doing them.
I think James Gunn, though, he carved out his own little niche in the Marvel-verse. You know what I mean? That's why he was very integral to the whole development. He was just a big talent, and he carved out his. I think you could hack Guardians out of the whole MCU, and it could be its own thing. You know what I mean? It's its own thing. Aside from what happens in Endgame and Infinity War and other movies, it's just, I think he created a very original, unique sort of like storyline with that.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of I would say probably there's 5 people who are the most integral into what Marvel have become. Feige's obviously number 1. Him and Favreau together are like the 2. And if you're building like the Mount Rushmore, it's those 2, the Russo brothers, and Gunn.
Wow,
They've really all done their own thing and really kind of led it in the right way. And now we're starting to see a little bit of it with them not being around as much anymore.
I'm excited for what he's going to do. You know, really thinking about it, like, there hasn't really been a James Gunn property movie, even before Guardians with Super, that was not really, really enjoyable. And I want to see, to me, the hardest character probably at this point to book, and it's ironic, I see the poster for it right here, is Superman. He's got to be the hardest one to book right now.
Right.
Because it was so divisive, and now you're going to get James Gunn to take a crack at it. Even though I loved Man of Steel, and I loved Henry Cavill's take, I had no heat with it, but I haven't loved everything that Zack Snyder has done like I've loved everything that James Gunn has done. And now his DNA is going to be on every single thing that's coming through there. They got a chance to make something really special.
Well, they have someone who's actually, a fan.
Yeah.
They've got someone who is passionate about the material.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why, I loved Cavill. I thought Cavill was great casting. I really did enjoy Man of Steel, even though it's got some small issues. But it's painfully obvious that Zack Snyder doesn't have a love of that material.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Watchmen. Watchmen is the director's cut of Watchmen. It's a decent flick, but it kind of misses the point of the comics.
Yeah.
And 300 is literally just a page to page on the screen, which is, give him some credit, but a lot of that goes to, Frank Miller as well, too. That it was so visually stunning that even though there's some lacking moments in the story, it still works okay. But you can tell that he's not a fan, and you can kind of see it on screen, too.
Did you see Christopher Nolan's comment that he thinks Watchmen was before its time?
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
I mean, Watchmen is a great film. If you've read the comics, it's very different story-wise from the comics, thematically especially. But it's still a good movie.
Yeah.
And the director's cut is way better than the
And I'll tell you this
theatrical.
about Zack Snyder. This is my feeling about him. I think he is at his best when he is a journeyman director.
Yeah, you're saying that.
The less invested he is in the project, I think the better it comes out. Man of Steel was a journeyman job. That was his director for hire. You know what I mean? I think it's great. I think that the more connected he gets with the material, the more it suffers. And like I don't mean that as like a slight to him, you know what I mean? I just think that his true talent he was a guy who directed commercials. You know what I mean? He was a guy who came in and did a job. And when he does that on a film, I think his best movies were, I think Man of Steel is fantastic. Dawn of the Dead is fantastic. Yeah. That was an impossible job to do.
That was a scary job to do.
Like that was like something where there's no matter what you do, you're going to get heat. And mind you, James Gunn wrote that script, so James Gunn was with him on that. But like that was a very decent attempt at a remake.
Yeah.
It worked pretty well, and it's an entertaining movie. It works pretty well overall. If it was called Mall of the Dead, it'd have been a huge hit.
Yeah, I love that title.
You know what I mean?
That's like a great title.
But like, I think that's where he's at his best. You know what I mean? And I think that's all part of the creative process. It's like, you know, I've said before, it's like collaboration is part of it. You know what I mean? Feedback is part of it. When you let somebody do whatever they want,
no, it never works.
It spins off out of control.
Well, I think part of it too is if you look at his career, most of the best films are one where he's a director and he doesn't have as much input in the story. And, you know, we saw a little bit with Man of Steel. He had kind of it, but he had more involvement in the story with BVS and even with Justice League too. So I think a part of that is also a factor, because if you look at 300 and if you look at even like Sucker Punch, which is not my favorite movie, I think Zack Snyder is gifted in a way Michael Bay is. Michael Bay can shoot an explosion like nobody's business. I think Zack Snyder has a great eye for visual storytelling.
Absolutely.
I just don't think that he's that good at crafting the story himself.
Exactly.
I think if he has a solid script from someone, he can turn it into gold.
Exactly. And like that, I agree with you 100%. And he is a great director, but a director should be there to direct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to write the script. I'm sorry. Not to produce. You're there to direct. You're there to do your job, what you're great at. The movie should be written by some guy who hasn't seen the sun in 4 years and like is like, you know, super passionate about the content. And it's like you have this great script to work at, and then you take your directing skills and you visualize that.
And I think that's why Gunn is so good, because he is a writer first and foremost, and then he was able to kind of study under directors who were basically directing his material.
Yeah.
And was able to pick up some of that stuff. Because I want to say that, honestly, some of his older movies don't look good. They're fun. Like Slither's a fun movie, but it's not like the most visual,
right,
you know, crazy, amazing thing. But he's picked up here and there little nuggets and he's basically developed that skill set for him. But being a writer first and foremost, I think, is what's given him that kind of edge over anybody.
100%. I agree. I think writing gives you an edge over other like filmmakers.
So I'm checking in with Mike. He said he's having some audio. He's going to be checking in a minute.
Oh, it looks like the meeting shut down. Let me start it back up.
So it's funny, you know, talking about Zack Snyder not doing the soup to nuts guy. We're going to find out with Rebel Moon because that's his project, right?
You said you've heard bad reviews. Everything I've heard has been positive.
I saw bad reviews, but I mean, again, I glance at reviews and then I just keep moving. So I just don't know, because it's the algorithm. They're going to give you both good and bad. And what depends on, I was just surprised I was going to get bad, because I got high hopes for it, because the whole germ of the story came as he was going to write a Star Wars script. Disney turned it down, which to me is just like, okay, it might be good because Disney turned it down. And then he kind of reworked it to not be Star Wars anymore, but it's going to have that flavor. So I guess we're going to find out what kind of Star Wars fan he was.
Well, I think it's rough too, because with him especially, I think he's one of the most polarizing directors because of his fans. You've got half the people who absolutely hate him and half the people who worship at his altar. So you're never going to get a true look of any kind of film he does by going off of reviews or even like a Rotten Tomatoes score.
That's so hard. I mean, I think AEW is getting ruined by a lot of its fans. And so I hate to hear that because you're right. Once it gets that black and white and that divisive, it makes it really difficult, you know, because you're not really going to get the needle movers, which is what you need to get the big box office.
I see Mike is definitely here. I think he's trying to figure out some audio issues.
Oh man, wait till you guys. Mike's working on another project that when you see it, I just been getting bits and pieces of it. Super excited about it.
I saw a little bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, super excited about that.
Okay, real quick. Do you want to see this Outsiders audition? I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's kind of long. We might have to shuttle through it. But this is the dude who auditioned for Outsiders.
What?
You go when you're a kid, man. You go when you're a kid.
I don't know. This was a big meme. This was one of the early memes.
Really?
The original viral video. It's this and Spuds MacKenzie. Look at that font.
Good day, Mr.
So it was like it's a cold call to Stanley Kubrick.
Good day, Mr. Kubrick. My name is Brian Atteen. I am a 20-year-old from the Theater Center of the Juilliard.
I don't know if we'll get pinged for this. I imagine that this can't be copyrighted.
Yeah.
I say that not as a statement.
You've never seen this?
No,
And you like The Outsiders.
Yeah, I do.
Let me see if I can jump ahead here.
Ain't gonna be no Rumble without me. I love The Outsiders.
He's got a long intro. Here we go. Here we go into the actual audition.
I ain't gonna walk again. Ain't no crutches. The doctor says I broke my back. You wanna know something? You wanna know something? I'm scared.
Imagine this guy or Ralph Macchio. Who would you pick?
I'm scared. It ain't enough. 20 years ain't enough.
This was before people knew that you should not videotape yourself and send it into the ether.
Do not cry.
How did I have never seen this?
I can't believe you've never seen this.
No.
Wouldn't mind it so much, but there ain't so many things I ain't done. So many places I ain't been. It ain't enough.
Wait, this is when Johnny was laying on the bed
Yeah, that's
suffering.
when Johnny was laying on the bed. Yeah.
But he's all animated like Stella!
On the street.
Like he's on the waterfront.
All right.
The sights you wanna see.
Mike's got to reboot real quick.
Yeah, I think he's rebooting. Okay.
But not the stuff you wanna learn, man.
All right. You get this.
love
You get what's going on.
I love that he started off like, I'm from the theater center, and then
I
he just
ain't
goes.
going to walk again.
He just goes straight up Foghorn Leghorn Daniel Craig.
Exactly. With a mix of Johnny drama in there and then some Brando.
I say I ain't never gonna walk again.
And then when you
broke my
watch
back.
Ralph Macchio does it, he does it so casual. He's like, I ain't gonna walk again, not even on crutches. Who directed that? Was that Coppola?
Coppola.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great movie.
Oh, so good. So good. So,
Mike's still booting up.
yeah,
so
he's still booting up, man. So we got two more flicks we can talk about. Brian, I think this is going to be this. I wouldn't have guessed it, but I think this is going to be the movie to beat for Christmas. Is Wonka, and you were the only one that went and saw it. What are your first reactions on there?
You
didn't want to like it. I remember.
Is there a lazy grandpa character?
No. So here's the thing. This is the thing that's nice. If you are a fan of either of the original Charlie and Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka, it doesn't really matter because this really has nothing to do with either one.
That
of them.
was going to be my biggest question. Is this a prequel to Gene Wilder or a prequel to Johnny Depp?
I mean, honestly, I feel in its heart he's completely aiming towards Gene Wilder.
Okay.
He's pretty much. I mean, the guy who directed this one is the same guy who directed Paddington. If you loved Paddington like most people did who saw it, I think you're going to at least enjoy part of this movie.
Okay.
It's got that kind of sweet tone throughout it. It's very, I don't want to say innocent, but it's very whimsical, which I actually really liked. And it's what I liked about the Gene Wilder one, is that even though he was doing some kind of crazy stuff, the whole movie is kind of whimsical in a little bit. And, I was talking to my daughter about this because I took her to see it, and I think one of the things that a lot of people miss with the Gene Wilder film is everyone talks about, he's killing kids and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, he's doing this, but it's all an act.
He murders a bunch of kids, though.
But
in his defense, he was just watching them die. He wasn't actually killing them.
But even that, in the end, we see that it was an act, that he was testing these kids, and that you see that wholesome charm come out at the end. Once Charlie has basically redeemed, or given the everlasting gobstopper to him, it's a complete switch. He breaks the character.
Yeah.
And he's the loving, caring person that he kind of is. And this movie does a great job of showing you where that comes from. You see Willie, starting off from scratch. Like he literally lands off the boat and the movie kind of starts. I really, really dug it more than I thought I would.
I've heard great things about it. Everybody I've heard it's great.
I went in with tempered expectations. I figured it might be good. It could be bad because we've had a bad one before. But honestly, I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, for most people who probably aren't aware, it's a musical. There are some great musical numbers in it, and it's got a great cast. Like Olivia Colman is fantastic in this movie. There's just some really great performances throughout that I really enjoyed. But honestly, Chalamet has been kind of on a nice little rise. I mean, he's had Dune, so he's kind of everywhere. But I've always liked his more subtle performances. Like I loved him in Little Women. In this one, he really has. I mean, he kind of has to carry the movie again. And I think that kind of taking on a character that everyone has kind of in their lexicon of characters is probably a daunting challenge. But I mean, I think he kind of pulls it off. I mean, he's not really doing an impression of Gene Wilder or an impression of Johnny Depp or anything like that. He's really kind of made it his own character, but you can see those glimpses of the kind of childlike wonder and how much he loves what he's doing. Like he's a guy who's dedicated his life to making chocolate, and that's really all. He just wants to bring that kind of joy to people, and I think that's what a lot of people miss in the Gene Wilder one because we're so focused on, he's watching these kids potentially die.
Right.
And it's not until the very end that you see that kind of that spark of wonder. Even when he's riding up with Charlie in the elevator, you can kind of see his eyes light up. And so this movie does a good job of really kind of showing you where that comes from, I think.
I'm happy to hear that you almost can't figure out which one he's kind of channeling.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that.
I would say he's probably it's about 85% Wilder. I mean, there's a few things that you can the quirkiness and weirdness of Depp. There's a few moments in there where you can kind of see where he's just kind of goofy and silly. But I almost chalk that up to being a Paddington movie, basically, because Paddington was very silly and whimsical like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, the rough parts. I mean, Hugh Jackman I was not a fan of his little Oompa Loompa. I think the CGI is crap on it, but whatever. I mean, it's a movie, but the story itself and the way they handle it, there's some beautiful shots in this movie too, especially with like the skylines and whatnot that they do.
All right.
It's a beautiful movie. The music's pretty good. It's not the greatest musical I've ever heard, but there's some songs that are really catchy and whatnot. But they took a lot of swings. I think this one honestly feels closer to the book than either of the other two movies did. For me personally, reading the book as a child, like it's got that kind of. They're aiming to try to capture the tone of the books.
All right, I'm here for it. I think I'm gonna go check it out Saturday, for sure. Marty, do you want? Mike's good. I don't know if you want to. How do you want to pull him in?
I think so. Mike's sorted. I'm gonna pull him in. It's not gonna be a smooth transition, so just book him in. It'll be video than audio. Here we go.
All right. Yeah, I think Saturday I'm going to go check it out. I kind of like that it feels like it's going to be a movie to see over the holiday. I'm glad it didn't come out in the summer.
Yeah, it definitely has a kind of wintry feel to it.
All right.
Mike, do you hear us?
Mike B. All right, what's up, man?
I gotcha.
Mike the Industry.
Yes.
Yo.
What's up, man? Welcome back.
Doing well. Been enjoying the conversation thus far as I work through the audio issues of remote dialing in.
Yeah,
we had one earlier before the show started, so we're good. There's always audio issues.
Yeah.
Name of the game.
Mike, what are your thoughts on Wonka? You're going to go see it, or are you a wait and see, or you think you're going to jump out and see it? What are you thinking?
Well, I'm in an interesting phase of my life where, for maybe the last 5-6 years, I really watched like every major movie that came out. If it came out, I watched it. All the major TV shows, all the major movies, except for like one or two of those things. Like I'd make some certain choices. Never watched Game of Thrones. saving Breaking Bad, like things like that. But now, in a post-Barbie world, I feel more driven to purposefully miss IP regurgitation, even if it's kind of a fresh movie take on an IP that we've known in some form for a long time. I'm kind of in a boycotting phase, so maybe in like 3 or 5 years I'll kind of come around on it and have this big movie marathon where I watch like Barbie and Wonka and all these like high gloss major studio cash grab movies that are good enough to entertain us but not really art. But I'm kind of taking a break from them for now.
I like the idea that it's going to be like a surprise. Like someday you're going to sit down and you're like, okay, without the pressure of doing it, like, because there's nothing like time to really test the mettle of film. Like
I'm sure that all this stuff is really great and that there's really unique things about where we are in history and the progression of cinema right now that feel like cancer to me when I watch them now, because we're just swimming in them all the time. So to give them a fair shot, I feel like I gotta take the time capsule approach here.
I love it because it's so hard. I think Quentin Tarantino is the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that somehow mastered releasing a film, and then every time you watch it, it just gets better and better and better, and it never feels old. It never feels stale. It just feels like something fresh. How we used to do it back in the day is like you test a movie where if it's on TV and you can't change it, that's a great film. And I feel like we don't know. We ain't going to know for the next 10 years, right, what modern film has the ability to do that outside of Quentin Tarantino. To me, he's a lock to do it. But which of all these films, which ones are really going to be able to do that? But
the culture of Hollywood has sped up so much. Like they have to release so many movies, and like part of the compounding Marvel problem is that so much is being released that there's not really enough time and speculation for all that stuff to sink in and for you to kind of want the next one before your plate is full again at the all-you-can-eat buffet of Marvel.
Right.
And so I feel like this feeling in myself of like not just sort of like taking a concerted effort to not just blindly consume whatever it is that's kind of thrown across my plate. It's almost like I feel like I got burned from being so addicted to Marvel that when that stuff started to not really have a bigger picture anymore, I got hungry to find creations and properties that fill that big picture itch. And I think Timothy Chalamet is becoming the king of the adaptation film in this era between Dune, the Wonka stuff, like book to movie properties. I think Chalamet kind of has that on lock, and I'll give it to him on that stuff. But as far as like consuming it right now, that's where I stay.
Honestly, that's all we got is adaptations. You know what I mean? Like that's all. That's the only game in town. Everybody's. It's just we want to adapt something and turn it into a property. It's hard. It's rare now to see an original premise at the theater. You know.
Well, I told you it took over Broadway too. I mean, it was nothing but adaptations. But fellas, then do I have a treat for you? Because I freaking went to the theater with no expectations and only seeing one trailer, and kind of like I like to balance it out too. You know, I kind of feel like I'll go see the big IP stuff, but sometimes I like to be surprised, go see original property. And I walked into Poor Things blind, and holy shit, did that knock me back on my ass. I was like, what am I watching? It's like Tim Burton's, they're like, all right, we need you to make Frankenstein with the female, but we need a lot of sex. I mean, we need a lot of sex, and we needed to make it look really, like you were saying, it's whimsical somehow. And like somehow Emma Stone is gorgeous and looks not like strange at the same time, where you can't take your eyes off her. But then you can actually feel my boy Mark Ruffalo is really getting down in there. I was like, what is happening? I was like, what is this movie? And then it was 2.5 hours long. I felt like a female Frankenstein with a lot of effing. That's really what it was. And it like blew me away. And I didn't hear anything about this film at all. I saw one mini trailer and then the poster. And then I was like, what is this? And I freaking loved it. And then, Brian, you were telling me, it's like, oh, he did The Lobster. He did The Favorite, which I had no idea. Have you guys seen it, heard of this, or what's your stance on Poor Things?
I haven't seen it yet. It's on my list, but it's also one of those, like, you know, right now I'm going to the movies a lot with my kids, and I don't really think I'm going to take my kids there. Don't
bring your kids.
I don't think I'm going to be that kind of father. So, you know, that's probably going to be one that I try to sneak off to either while they're on their break or once they go back to school. I'll try and find a screening still somewhere.
My wife looking at me and she's like, what am I watching? Oh my God, I'm glad I didn't bring. Oh my God.
Lars von Trier's Frankenstein over here.
So, like, I mean, there's really no way to spoil this. And even if I told you what was happening, you're going to want to go experience it. But you're like, okay, I kind of get it. It was a little bit of the man with two brains. Like, what happens if you take a baby brain and put it in an adult body and then kind of flip it around? And then she's sitting at the table and she's looking at the apple, but her legs were kind of propped up. And I was like, you felt it coming. And it was just like, wait a minute, what is she doing with that apple? And then I was like, oh no, is she going to do what I think she's doing with that apple? And I'm like, what's happening here? But it was freaking so good. The casting, like you couldn't take your eyes off it. Just the visual choices, the makeup. I think it should win an award for some makeup. And Willem Dafoe as basically the Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah, it felt like that. And I was like, I was getting Edward Scissorhand vibes too, which was, again, a great original film in there. But I was just like, well, it's a hard R, Edward Scissorhands. Because first when they showed Emma Stone's boobs, I'm like, oh, they must have got a boob double, right? She's not going to do that. And then you pretty much just see her naked the rest of the film. Like the entire film, she's like, goes all out. And I think she deserves an award for just the bravery, right? Because I feel like Hollywood, right, they'll reward you if you're willing to bare skin for art. Like they're not going to, for the sake of showing skin, they're not going to reward you. But if you're doing it, you're bearing it for the art. And there were some hard scenes in here that you're like, whoa, this is getting really, you're squirming a little bit because now she's, kind of learning about the birds and the bees. Hard art. And then put that capital R in there. But again, that's probably the movie in the past 6 months that really just like floored me and still sticks with me. Like I didn't cleanse the palate until Iron Claw came out, which is now the one that's rattling around in my brain. But I went Five Nights at Freddy's and Exorcist. Like I went Marvels. Like that stuff was just like, and then it was gone. But that Poor Things just stayed there. It's just like stuck in my head.
And it's very similar. I mean, there's a lot of movies that have been coming out over the last, decade that have really kind of, for me, done that. I think Robert Eggers is doing some fantastic stuff, like watching The Lighthouse, which also brought, made me think of with Willem Dafoe, is one of those kind of movies similar to that. But then even going back farther, when Aronofsky did Mother was such a polarizing movie for a lot of people, but that one was the one that stuck with me for like weeks. I was like, gee, I just kept thinking about that movie over and over and over again. Yeah. And it's those kind of movies where they're taking that kind of bold swing at being their own thing, not a formulaic kind of film like that.
Yeah, that's important. I love that. If a movie makes me feel something, I like it.
Yeah.
If it makes me cringe, if it makes me sick, if it pisses me off, I like it. You know what I mean? A movie that just kind of plays out in front of you and you leave the theater saying, oh, well, that happened.
Yeah.
There's nothing to talk about after that.
No. You want it to rattle around in your brain, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore. The whole water cooler talk. It was just like so important with a lot of these films. And we're talking about like standing the test of time. That's what you're going to need. You need something that's going to be that cerebral attack that it just sticks to your brain, and then just keeps slowly releasing. So I don't know, man. I think you guys should run, not walk, and find your way to see that. But just make sure you're in the right company.
I'm definitely going to watch it. It's been on one theater in Austin for the past 2 weeks. It's been hard to get a seat, so I'm definitely going to check it out.
Well, again, I told you Mike, earlier we were talking about a lot of the myths of New York, and that was another one they said showing in New York and Manhattan, and I mean New York and L.A., and I could not find it in New York. I had to wait to come back to Austin and go to that theater to see it. I couldn't find it.
I haven't seen the film. I've watched a couple of the reviews. It sounds really interesting. I think one of the things that really stands out to me is, when we're talking about this kind of hyper cash and revenue focused Hollywood that we find ourselves in these days, it's really interesting to see so many, like you were able to rattle off a number of kind of alternative films that are new, fresh material, and I think that you kind of get it. It kind of comes in two flavors these days. You're either getting the film auteur style stuff that can kind of stand on its own, put out fresh content all the time. The Nolans, the Andersons, the Tarantinos out there that are just going to always kind of make their own stuff. And then on the other side, you kind of have this world of alternative or independent film houses that are smaller production companies that are making these films on a smaller budget so that if they return money, all of it is profit for the most part. And then on the art film side of things, there's this other level to it where there's actually a lot of grotesque stuff, whether it's grotesque facing of life or a lot of grotesque sexuality that you wouldn't be able to see in these pervasive Hollywood blockbusters. And my mind kind of immediately goes to like that in the Traumaverse and the Toxic Avenger and kind of the roots of alternative films in America. So many of the methods and the symbols and the things that they use to make those movies what they were back then, you see how they're progressing in these independent film lanes that are developing now. And then with the actual people that are doing these things, like as you were talking about before, James Gunn, who's a Trauma alumni himself. I think it's interesting to look at some of those low budget things that kind of had a really big impact on pop culture in various ways and how they're now kind of the main pervasive themes that are keeping independent films alive with so many people's different takes on those parts of film.
I was just sitting there and wondering, and you're talking about like the indie lanes versus like the Hollywood lanes. How did this script get sold and pitched? Because if you were to write something like this and just go to your average dumbass, Hollywood studio exec, they're not even going to read it. They won't even get through a page. But if you even pitched a premise, they're not even going to read it. Like, how did this get this was an original property that got big names. Like, how did this one get done?
Well, I mean, Yorgos Lanthimos has already carved out a little niche for himself. I mean, Olivia Colman won the Oscar off of his last movie. They're all Oscar. His movies have all they're Oscar quality or Oscar caliber. They get nominated for those types of awards. So I think once you open that up and you become that guy, I'm sure this wasn't a super expensive movie. I mean, it is a period piece, but it's probably not. It's not blockbuster level. So
there's no pervasive CGI.
Exactly.
Right? That's the big.
So
thing.
Something like this, it's like, okay, Yorgos Lanthimos has created a niche for himself. Big actors want to work with him. Emma Stone wants to be in your movie. The check center is like, okay, we'll fund that. But right. Like, I think so. I think that's how this thing gets made. It is an auteur movie. You know what I mean? You can't pitch this cold. If Yorgos Lanthimos was a nobody, if he worked at Arby's and this was the script he wrote, nobody would want to read it.
No, exactly. 100% agree with that. So you're saying you just need somebody that's already got a little bit of bankability to champion that for you, to shepherd it in.
Yeah.
Very much like
bankability or like street cred enough to pull in those high caliber actors.
Yeah, they don't need to read the script if they can read a marquee that has a bunch of names that they recognize.
Exactly.
So you just build that out. This is the director. We got Emma Stone. It's only going to cost you X.
Yeah.
And we think we could win some awards.
We got Emma Stone. We got the Hulk is in it. I mean, come on. This is going to be a hit.
I could just see the brunch where these motherfuckers are talking.
I'm sure when they pitched the mood board, they had Emma Stone from whatever
And
Superbad and like the Hulk. Yeah.
Hollywood needs to fire so many people. I don't know how do we make that happen.
Yeah.
They need to fire so many people. They just realize that there's magical people that are just like somehow inserted in that system that are just being snuffed out, stifled, blocked by just these non-creative slugs and freaking leeches.
There's a lot of failing
Jeff
upwards.
doesn't like the suits at all.
Oh man, no! I like the only suit I like is E because he gave the script. Edward Norton wants to make your very raw script, so you're going to listen to me. I worked at Sbarro's. That's what I need. We need more suits like that to take some chances.
I mean, I would say the only suit that I support is Tom Cruise's character from Tropic Thunder.
100%.
Oh, that was a short we popped out from you, B Rose. That did really well.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
That did.
Les
really
Grossman
One
owns.
of Tom Cruise's best roles by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, hands down. Speaking of that, before we take a quick break, did you guys see, I don't know where it was, there was a whole bracket that was the best film director of all time. And they were just kind of battling it out, and I don't know who was voting, but in the end bracket, it came down to Christopher Nolan versus Steven Spielberg, and Nolan won, which I didn't agree. That's tough. I don't know if I agree with. Do you guys agree with? I personally, I'll tell you why my reasons. But do you guys agree with that? Nolan had to put Spielberg over in that final bracket.
How many movies has Nolan done?
Way less than Steven Spielberg.
So what is it? 7?
7 or 8, I think.
So let's say Spielberg's first 7 against Nolan's 7. Okay, you can't take Spielberg's
that's a good way to
full
put it.
career into account. So you got Midnight Express, which is like that's following for Nolan, and then you go from following. Nolan had Memento, but Spielberg had Jaws.
Well, he had Duel first.
Oh, Duel. We had
Duel was first.
Duel is
So Memento
good.
was Duel, and then you had Insomnia, which was Jaws.
Which is Jaws.
Help me out, Mike. What come after this? I think Spielberg had a big
Wasn't that-
bomb. He had 1941,
1941 was.
but I
the
think
first,
that it's appreciated more now for what it is.
which I would like to see again to see how it feels like it held up.
Yeah.
Where does Duel was his? Well, that was a TV movie, right? So his first one that was theatrical was the Sugarland Express, then Jaws.
Yeah.
So, but he got booked on Jaws for that. So, I mean, if you're going on here, it's 63 films that he had. But I don't know. I feel like those
I think
swings.
you have to take into consideration the rate at which the movies were being put out, because Spielberg was at a stage early in his career when he was putting these suckers were going out every year. Sometimes he'd have like 2 films releasing a year. Nolan, it's been 20 years that he's gotten to 8, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's a good way to put it. It just didn't feel. I think you guys are kind of bringing to light what bothered me. I don't know if this is necessarily apples to apples, even though they're both film directors. It was different time periods, different film cadence, different availability of technologies and actors, Hollywood sensibilities. I mean, he came from, I broke into a studio and took over a storage room and made it my office, and then people took me seriously, where now you do that and you go to jail.
So if we're looking at Nolan's work, so he's got about 10 or 12. We go following, Memento, Insomnia are his first 3. Then we get Batman Begins and The Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar. And then we get into, Dunkirk and Tenet. But those are the first ones. And honestly, look, they're great films. I think the Dark Knight trilogy is one of the best trilogies of any kind of thing. I think part of the issue too is the people who vote on these kind of things tend to skew a little younger, and I think that for the 20 to 30, 35 crowd, they're all about Nolan. And I think once as you start getting older, you start getting into more of the Spielberg fanboys, and so they're probably not the ones that are voting on online polls and things like that. Because I mean, if you look at just between Jaws and Raiders, those two right there are two of the most iconic films of all time.
Yeah.
Not discrediting what Nolan's done. I think that, to me, I think Spielberg is a better director. I think that Nolan is a better... He's right below that, but I think Nolan has a better eye for visual storytelling than Spielberg does.
And I think also Spielberg's a little bit more of a journeyman director.
Yeah.
You know, Nolan is a filmmaker. He wants to own the whole movie. Spielberg can like find a script and say, "This is something I'd like to do. Let me turn this into a movie." Whereas Nolan wants to develop the whole thing from top to bottom.
Yeah,
You were talking about that with Zach earlier.
The Goonies factor.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies. I think also one of the things that stands out to me about this kind of thing, so Brian B. Rose, what you were talking about makes perfect sense, and I think another layer to that is also that Steven Spielberg has a lot more great contemporaries that are kind of on the level that you could say, yeah, that person or like that guy's in the same era. Yeah, that guy's better than Spielberg. I like Scorsese. I like Tarantino. I like these guys that were making films at the same time that they were in their heyday.
De Palma, yeah.
De Palma, I mean, geez, yeah, the list is very, very long in terms of people you would say were active, great filmmakers at the same time as Spielberg. I don't know that there are as many people that are right now currently working on the ascent that are on that same level as Nolan. I would argue that like Jordan Peele may be the second closest just in terms of overall quality and what like brings you to the theater and then what you leave from the theater with. You feel like you're having that cinematic experience that some of those great filmmakers of the past have done when Hollywood was making those movies. Nolan's the only one that Hollywood's allowing to make those movies for the most part, and Jordan Peele, and maybe one or two others that are kind of scattered about.
That's a good point. I mean, maybe that is the judge of it. Like, are you going to go see a movie just based on the director's name above the title?
Well, there's a bit of recency bias as well, too, because Spielberg is not putting out hardly anything right now.
True.
He is 80.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah, we'll give him a break.
The Fablemans.
Yeah. Oh man, I was trying to look. So he's 80, but somehow he still has three films in development that are actually underneath his directors.
He's been directing his whole life. He can do it in his sleep. He'll do it till the day he passes. You know what I mean?
Untitled Bullet Project.
He's pure director, and like I think visual style. I think for when he came up, he's got a brilliant visual style. You know what I mean? Some of those shots in Jaws and Temple of Doom, it's like, wow. You know, he did a lot with 1984 technology.
And nobody's got the Spielberg range, like from Child to fucking Schindler's List, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude can do it.
Yeah.
There's a great little thing that's been going around like TikTok and Reels right now of showing, you know, someone posted one of the most impressive shots that no one really gives a lot of thought to. And it's that nice little shot in E.T. where you're over the ledge and you're kind of seeing into the suburb. And then all of a sudden he comes into frame and whatnot. And it's not an easy shot to get. And I think that's kind of one of the things that people forget about is he's a fantastic director, but I think he got lost in the mix with everything else that was so great about that era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch that shot in Jaws where Chief Brody is talking to the mayor on the ferry. Mm-hmm. That's a oneer. Watch that shot in Raiders where we meet Marion and it's a drinking contest. That's a oneer. That's one. That's no cuts. Like it's good. Spielberg's got the chops. You know what I mean? He's from a different era.
He's a cobbler. He's a cobbler.
Yeah.
They don't cobble anymore.
Yeah.
But he's a cobbler, and he cobbles with the best of them.
In 20 years, I want to see where Nolan's at, then we'll maybe have a closer debate on that.
Yeah.
What
I would say he's probably wherever Kubrick is on the list currently at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Nolan kind of skews more to the Kubrick. The Kubrick space.
Yeah, the filmmaker. What would you guys say was the last Steven Spielberg movie that you really, really loved?
I mean, you'd have to tell me the order, honestly, because
there was The Fablemans, which I haven't even seen.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a charming movie.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I mean, West Side Story. I don't want to really compare it because I do like the OG. So I don't know, but
I mean, it's shot spectacularly. Like,
Is it?
it's flawless. The way, the choreography, the cinematography, you could not do any better.
there's no holes.
It's not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, nobody wants to see a replication of like a movie from the 50s done to a T. It's great, but not for. I would say it's not for everybody.
So yeah, Ready Player One for me was probably the closest that I really, even though the book, it doesn't do any justice to the book.
I didn't love that. I thought it was okay.
It was it felt rushed. It felt a little shoehorned, right?
Yeah.
I'll say, that was one that I was really amped for because of how much I loved the book and was really okay, not a huge fan. But I will say, after rewatching it like 4 or 5 times since it's come out, because it's been, almost a decade,
Yeah.
it grows on me a little more when I watch it.
It does, yeah.
It's more of like a comfort food kind of thing for me. I mean, it's not like the greatest and definitely not a great adaptation, but it's got its moments where I'm like, oh, I really like what he did by changing some of the story
And before
too.
that, Jeff, what else?
The Post,
And the BFG.
the BFG.
Oh, the Post was great.
Yeah.
Post is really good. BFG I didn't see.
Bridge of Spies,
Didn't see.
Lincoln.
Didn't love
A
it.
WWE film.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They were with Lincoln. I forgot that they were when they dipped their toe in the film.
John Wilkes Booth, swerve. I ducked
People's
that shot.
elbow.
Oh man, I got to jump back. It just hit me what Ready Player One, the Duffer Brothers as a series versus Spielberg as a film, I think would have been the way to go.
I haven't read the book, so I can't really.
I always thought that Ready Player One would be a much better series than it would have been a
Yeah,
movie.
and then you have the Duffer because Ready Player Two, the book is also great.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy it, but I would have they needed it to be a series. Then
I
Tim.
would say the last one of these films that I think he directed that kind of stands out to me as one that I don't have any qualms with. There's a lot of qualms with a lot of these films on the most recent portion of the list, but when he's in that phase in the early 2000s where he's doing Catch Me If You Can,
Yeah.
then Minority Report, and AI, that those three, and then right before that, a few years earlier, was Saving Private Ryan and
Yeah.
Amistad. Like, I feel like that's the real tail end, is the beginning of the 2000s. And then once you hit the
Solid.
terminal, you're kind of on the, like, made-for-TV movie version.
The
of
Terminal
Steven
is made for TV. That is a good way to put it. It felt made for TV.
Good movie though. I enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
it was good.
Yeah, no, I mean, come on, Spielberg's touching it. It's going to be good. It's
Yeah.
better than, like, if it's just a Hallmark movie, but it still has that everything beyond that. So we're talking Terminal, War of the Worlds, Munich, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Timeless Call, Adventures of Tintin, War Horse, Lincoln, Bridge of Spies, BFG, The Post, Ready Player One, West Side Story, to the Fabelmans. All of those just feel like a click below in terms of, like,
Yeah, that's fair.
Spielberg sort of said, I don't really have anything left to prove. I'm going to make shit I like. I'm not going to try to do anything fancy with it. And that's cool, but it's not, it's not pushing the envelope on anything.
Yeah, and he's just got a thing. He's got a work ethic. He's a director. Like I said, I feel like Spielberg is just the greatest journeyman director of all time. He can just take anything and, like, hammer it out of the park. I mean, he's great. Where you see someone like Scorsese, like Tarantino, very emotionally connected to everything he does, and he's like, I'm only doing 10. You know what I mean? I don't want to get to the point. He's had such a great streak. I don't want to get to the point where someone says I've lost it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
He doesn't want his made-for-TV movie era of his career.
100%,
basically,
and he doesn't need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't need it, and I think that I respect him for that. Like I said, Tarantino's going to retire from directing movies, and I'm going to retire from watching them as soon as he does that, because I just feel like it's kind of partially the end of movies when he stops making them.
It's going to be different.
Yeah.
And think of what you just said. It just hit me how important criticism for films is to him. Like, he has passages from, critic articles memorized from back in the movies when he was just a fan.
Exactly.
I mean, it means so, like, criticism of film, means so much to him. He doesn't want to be on the other side of it because knowing how he feels about it, he's worried that there's a chance they might be right.
All right.
So this is really interesting. Just before we hit the break, I was taking another pass here, just looking at something to do some comparisons with. So net worth as a metric for how good these directors are.
Oh wow, okay, that's a good one.
So Christopher Nolan, at this point in his career, $250 million, right? Not bad. He's in a good spot. He's 8 films in. He's probably got a number of decades beyond him. For context here, George Lucas, currently worth $5.1 billion. Peter Jackson, $1.5 billion. And right in that sweet spot there is Steven Spielberg, $4.8 billion net worth that will probably go on forever with all of the rights that this guy is probably wrapped up in all of these franchises that will never die.
Oh, yeah.
So from a legacy perspective, we just had a long conversation about the artistic value of a motherfucker that made $5 billion off of us in the process.
Yeah.
That is really putting it into context.
Yeah.
But time will tell.
One of the greats.
All right. You want to take a quick BRB?
Let's do it.
All right.
BRB.
BRB.
Got a Christmas story to tell, and you really want to tell it well. Get it, don't forget it, on Kodak Film. You feel better when you say, I got it.
Every picture tells a story. Capture the color of Christmas this year on fresh Kodak film.
I got it! I got it!
Kodak wishes you some merry, merry pictures.
Atari would like to thank you for taking us into your homes. We wish you all a happy holiday.
Hi, how are you again?
I have some last-minute gift problems.
Don't worry. Hickory Farms has over 100 gift packs. Gifts with mild cheddar cheese, smoky bar cheese. We are the super cheese market.
Yes, but
and Hickory Farms specialties like beef stick and sweet hot mustard.
Oh, look, I'll just put myself in your hands.
Okay. Let's see. It's 14 elves.
Mm-hmm.
How many reindeer?
Well, there's Dasher and Dancer and Prancer.
Merry Christmas, Merry, Merry Christmas from your Kmart Christmas store. Save on sweaters and on hats, bowling balls and baseball bats.
Cameras, TVs, bikes and plants, goldfish, bath toys, slippers, pants.
Mirrors, dresses, perfume, socks, toasters, roasters, robes and clocks. Candy, records, films and toys at Santa Land for girls and boys. Christmas smiles light every face at Kmart's Christmas saving place.
Friday, a holiday tradition for 21 years.
I've killed it.
It's time once again for America's favorite Charlie Brown adventure. It's an Emmy award-winning special. It's a Charlie Brown Christmas. Then he's back, the original cool guy. And this time he's gonna melt your heart. So chill out with Frosty the Snowman. Share the holiday spirit Friday on CBS.
If anybody loves trains, it's me, Johnny Cash. You know, if your boy's under 10 like mine is, he needs a big Lionel like this Black River Freight. Lionel also makes HO gauge trains for older kids, like this Burlington 181. But for smaller hands, the big Lionel is easier to handle and put on the track. This Christmas, get your boy a train that's built for the way young boys play. A big, rugged Lionel. Lionel, the big train for small hands.
in the house. Man, it's good to be back, and it's good to be back at Christmas. Everyone loves New York at Christmas time, but I was ready for some tacos and some barbecue, so I was ready for that.
Yeah, give Texas at Christmas time some cred here.
Yeah.
I could just imagine you, Jeff, though, finding a couple of bandits hiding out in a small toy house in the toy store, setting up elaborate schemes and then luring them to them for your Lost in New York sequel.
Thankfully, that pigeon lady was there to help.
We have a bagel lady, and it's funny. There is a little toy store in downtown South Orange that I have not worked my way into, but it just looks like, oh, that's got to be a front or something. I got to go in there. So I got to work my way into that one too. So. Before we get started, I'm gonna slip into intern mode real quick and bring you guys something because it's Christmas. And Mike, I apologize, you're remote, so I can't hand you something here, but we'll take that as an IOU. So let me slip into intern mode real quick.
Here come. Okay. This is unexpected. I don't know what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So we normally celebrate what we celebrate here, so I'm gonna go into center mode. But I got you guys something.
Nice.
Something just to talk about on the air. Give us some talking points. So it's a little.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
So it's a little bit of a motive too, because you have the things of just like what film or project or anything like reminds you of the people that you're around, and Mike, you have one too, and we got to figure out how to do this remotely. But when I think of B Rose, I think of Buffy. So it was just like I saw the like once more with feeling metal poster, and I was like, okay, we got to get that. And then for you, Mario, it's just like it always, we always have the horror vibe here, but you are always kind of like the secret sauce of just like, hey, you got to try this. Like you haven't like you kind of introduced me to like a whole different world of like films and stuff. So, and Ty West kind of sticks with that in there too. So I was like, okay, so I don't know. I just grabbed those if we want to talk about that, because obviously one is the past coming out's coming. So we got our Maxine, and then
where did you get this? Wow, I didn't know there was any Maxine swag yet.
Well, when Mike said that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna whip these out of the bag. So because you're just like the hidden gems that I was finding, and that is one of the benefits of being in New York. That sometimes you find strange shit, and I saw these, and I'm like, okay, I gotta grab these.
Wow,
so,
thank you.
Man.
That's amazing.
And they do.
I'm gonna pull off my real license plate.
Put that one on there.
Put this on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No worries, man. So, but Mike, we saved this combo for you because you and I have already been kind of trying to figure out, and we're trying to help Marvel book their way out of this mess that they're in, and we're big fans of, unfortunately, the actor who will no longer be the one who remains. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We gotta move past it.
He went from He Who Remains to He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He is now He Shall. And the issue is, he is so important, such an important character, Kang the Conqueror. And everybody's so fast to just kind of like shoo him away and move to Doctor Doom. And I think that's going to be a mistake. And I think it'll show a sign of weakness from Marvel. And then to quote Adam Driver on Saturday Night Live the other week, I didn't kill Han Solo. Wokeness killed Han Solo. So I think it's really important, if they want to show strength, just rebook it. Just rebook it. They didn't have... Josh Brolin wasn't always Thanos, right? They had a different Red Skull. They had a different Incredible Hulk. I mean, they've done Don Cheadle. I mean, they've done big bookings. I think it's really important to stay the course, don't show any weakness, and stick to the Kang dynasty. So let's start, and Mike, we'll start with you. Let's throw our names out. I think we have a lot of obvious names, but then we have some uncertain names like Isaiah Washington. What was his name in Tropic Thunder? I see a lot of people booking Robert Downey Jr. as his character in Tropic Thunder to play Kang the Conqueror. I was like, I would love that, but I don't think they would go that far.
I know who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a dude.
Playing a dude that got recasted by another dude.
It's like, well, good news. We are bringing back Robert Downey Jr., but just not as you expected.
All right.
But
so
yeah, throw your names out there, Mike.
So I'm just going to start with the heaviest hitter that's on the board, and it kind of has a secondary one that's attached to it. I think that if they just reach out there and they book Denzel Washington as Kang, everyone forgets Jonathan Majors ever existed in the story. You find a bigger star, someone that has just as much excitement, even if it's a different kind of excitement, someone that can get the fan base to focus on the possibilities and the opportunities with this individual. And if you can't get Denzel, I'd take his son too.
Oh, perfect.
I think that's a different approach. I think that's more of a one-to-one with Majors in terms of the position they're in their career. But the work that he did in Tenet, I just think stands out as the kind of demeanor that you need to be carrying to be making these fantastical concepts feel real. And I think the power of his performance, based on the last moments we saw Jonathan Majors from Quantumania or the last Loki series, his acting skill would have the potential to just overshadow that performance.
It just hit me when you said that because I love booking both of them. I'm currently
Exactly.
watching.
Yes, that's the next step.
Yeah,
you got
just
both
book
of them.
both.
The whole now you got two variants as key variant roles.
Oh
in
my
the family.
god, that was so good. I mean, Monarch it hasn't pulled me in, but I'm still watching it. I'm trying to get pulled in, but I am loving the idea of, Kurt Russell, father and son, playing the same character in two different periods. You can do that with Kang, and that would be beautiful. I think people would forget all, and that's not an easy task to forget about Jonathan Majors, but I think that would do it.
Well, what's funny too is before Tenet, he really hadn't broken out yet, but he had two really great performances that were very just kind of, I don't want to say under the radar, but he's in BlacKkKlansman, which he's fantastic in that. But the thing that I remembered him from and didn't realize it until I focused on it was he is one of the highlights of the series Ballers with The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
He's fantastic.
Oh, he's in Ballers? I didn't realize that.
He's one of the main football players.
Oh, wow.
And he's fantastic in that. And I remember once I realized that was him, I was like, oh, man, this guy's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, he plays Ricky. I watched probably the whole first season before I realized that was Denzel's son, and he's great in that. He is so good in that. And
just to put a bow on that, so you move forward with Avengers 5, starring Denzel's son. Post-credit scene, fucking Denzel comes into play, sets up Secret Wars, right? Yeah,
that's better. That's definitely what we call in wrestling, right? It's just like taking chicken shit and making chicken salad. I mean, that's taking chicken shit and making a chicken buffet. I mean, that would get the
chicken a la king.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, and I think that Marvel has kind of created this problem, or the situation has created this problem.
Mike, it's a situation.
Anybody, Denzel or Denzel Jr. Okay, they're keenly aware of the issues Marvel is having. Okay, and anybody they want to book in here to do the it's doing a job. You're doing a job. They're gonna demand that you park a Brinks truck in front of their house, and then they'll do it. You know what I mean? They know how much Marvel needs this, and I don't think. And aside from that, I don't know who wants to take this job. Okay?
Yeah.
Who wants to be the one? It's just got a bad history attached to it now. Okay? Your actor is now convicted of third-degree assault. Who wants to be the guy who replaces him? You know what I mean?
Will Smith wants.
Will Smith will take it. Okay, that's a good call. That right now he needs that career, rejuvenation.
But here's my slight rebuttal to those 2 points: is that when we talk about who wants to replace him, we had a prime example with Christopher Plummer replacing Kevin Spacey and winning an Oscar for it.
True.
With all the money in the world. And then in terms of backing the Brinks truck up, Marvel's already done it kind of with Harrison Ford, because he's going to be in the new Captain America. And of all the crotchety old people who don't want to be in a Marvel movie besides Denzel, Harrison Ford would be up there. So I can only imagine the amount of money or percentage points they had to get him to sign on to replace another character.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right.
I would say there's a little bit more nuance to it though, because like this is a weird situation. You know what I mean? Jonathan, not to go down this route, but it's there. Jonathan Majors is getting cut from this, and he's convicted of third-degree assault. Not necessarily something that would be I don't think he's going to do any jail time for that. I'm not sure of all the specifics of it. Okay, but just a few months ago, you had literally Ezra Miller choked a lady on camera and started a cult and kidnapped a minor. And is walking free, okay? Like there's just another nuance here, and I just don't know that another actor is going to want to step into those shoes. You know what I mean? Out of respect.
So you think this is a little different than like rebooking Dumbledore because he sadly passed away? You think that there's a little bit more because of
I feel like Jonathan Majors is unpopular because no one has really jumped up to defend him. Mm-hmm. But again, a little solid. I feel like other African American actors might want to show a little solidarity and be like, I don't want that job. That's not for me. You know what I mean? And I don't know that top tier actors are going to want to take that.
I mean, I think it's going to come down to the fact that he's not being recast because he wanted more money like Terrence Howard did.
Yeah.
And Cheadle even reached out to him and kind of got his blessing for taking over Rhodey. I think this is going to be a lot more clean cut. I think there are enough hungry people out there.
Hungry people for sure.
Who want this kind of opportunity for what it is, but also want the challenge of that. I think you're going to find someone who will easily take it up and honestly aren't going to care that much about who they're replacing because of the circumstances.
Yeah. Denzel, though, not hungry.
Yeah. No, Denzel's full.
He's fucking full.
Yeah. He's plenty.
He's got Equalizer 4. He's got to work on that. So.
He would take the role. He'd be not even losing weight for the role or learn doing. Now he wouldn't even wear the suit. He would just show up in his regular clothes and be like, "I'm King. I'm King, y'all. What's up?"
It's going to be like getting someone on Hot Ones. Like, I don't even know what this is, but my kid said you got to do this.
Yeah,
exactly.
I like the idea of booking an unknown possibly too. It's just, to me, the only thing I don't like is I don't like them messing with the story. And maybe they needed to fix the story anyway. Maybe, like Mike was saying, maybe this breather is going to be a blessing to let them pull back and kind of like get their bearings, go back to their corner, put the Vaseline on the eye, cover up the cuts, and then go back out there, swing again. But Kang's just too important to me. It's just like I don't want to rush to Doctor Doom because he's just as important. But if you're talking about you want this to continue on for the next 10, 20 years and it become an official genre like horror movie, suspense movie, superhero movie, you're going to need to not cram two very important characters in there at once at the same time that you're trying to reintroduce the X-Men in there, which are just as important too. And like it's a really weird time, for comic book movies as a whole. So you just, to me, don't make any rash decisions, and I hope Feige holds his ground, right? And just stay strong and say, well, we're just going to move ahead. Do it like General Hospital. The part of Kang is now being played by John David Washington. And then be done. And then we'll forget all about it.
Well, I even like the way they handled Cheadle when he comes in. Like, Downey kind of looks at him in that opening scene, and he's like, you changed something? Like, just a subtle little nod like that. You look a little different.
That was pretty early in the Marvel setup, though. So I think, Terrence Howard, shout out to Terrence Howard. I mean, I feel like I've heard stories that he's very difficult, but he he had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
He thought he was more valuable than Robert Downey Jr. at the time, and that's why he left. He's like, no, this guy has I just did Hustle and Flow. What's up?
I created new math, I think was the stage he was at when he was in those contract negotiations.
Exactly.
So he hit the deep end pretty quick. But I guess just to kind of rebuttal that a little bit. So, first of all, Kang has been the only really compelling thing to me during this entire run of movies. And that's great. I am glad that there has been a character that I could get excited for, where most of the stuff that I was consuming from these franchises and these brands were disappointing in one way or another that I wasn't used to from the producers of these properties. It was a new sensation, and Kang, when he first showed up as He Who Remains, became the lifeblood that kind of carried my interest forward. And it was like, oh, there's so many possibilities. I can't believe that they jumped to introducing him out of the blue in a series finale like that. It was wild.
It was
and
wild.
I rewatched it over and over, and I was so excited about the possibilities. And to be fair to that chapter and to what Jonathan Majors did create and did produce, like, I don't really hate this being a temporary bow on the character. It's a time-based villain. So that means, unlike any of these other characters that we've talked about in the context of this Marvel conversation, Kang can disappear for 10 years, 20 years, show up in any random property, and it could be same age, totally just a recast of that original Kang character, and it works. So why not give it that breathing room, make him the Ultron of this phase, basically. All we're missing is an end of movie stinger at the end of like Black Widow that has Doom in a castle, and now Doom comes in at the beginning of Act 3 of the phase structure, and you've kind of matched that phase 1 through 3 energy with that, I think.
He could be like your Uno card. Your trump cell, eventually when you hit a roadblock in the MCU sort of like path that you're writing, it's like boom, Kang card.
Kang
He's back.
100%.
I'm back. No, I agree. I agree.
Dude,
I think that's
a good point.
I think that's a better way to do it than to just try to write him out. Just pull him back, and because I feel people I think that the way they executed it, people aren't that into it anyway. So just pull him back and drop him when it matters. And by that time, who knows? Maybe you get Denzel. Maybe you get somebody else to make a big splash.
Whoa.
Right now,
or you just go Steve Buscemi and blow the whole fucking thing up, right? Like
Steve Buscemi is king. Hello, fellow kids.
Hello.
Did we all see the end of Loki season 2?
I didn't watch
it. Didn't? Well, I don't think you're afraid of spoilers here, but Mike, you think it's possible that they are doing that? Because the way they booked it for Victor Timely not getting that book, they made it seem like now that he's never going to be. Do you think
it's not just the Victor Timely handling? It's also that throwaway line at the end of the series where they say that a Kang variant popped up and that folks from 616 handled it, describing the events of Quantum Mania. They love to say that there were no reshoots or changes in Loki season 2 at all, and I think that's a work, and that they did do some slight changes to that final episode to prepare the audience for Kang to not be an active threat. As we stand today, he's not an active threat.
Dude, when you were giving your counterpoint to letting him take a break, that season finale, that last end scene just came rushing back, and I think they are doing that.
Yeah.
I'm changing my mind live on air. I think they are doing that. You might be right. Just like take them off the plate for a little while. Take them off the table.
Well, and if we think from the Disney perspective from a moment, this is the way that I would go about this opportunity, because it's an opportunity. In terms of the business, they can now look back on this failed phase and blame it 1,000% on Kang. All that stuff didn't work because we were trying to figure out this complex time travel villain, and it didn't really work for the audience. It felt too multiversy, crazy, whatever. So we're going back to a terrestrial villain, blah, 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 blah. And hey, guess what? After Deadpool, the next major property that's basically the Iron Man of this next phase of the Marvel properties, Fantastic Four, is going to be the Iron Man. So now you're going to have Galactus, you're going to have Doctor Doom, and they're going to drive the next 6 phases. And they'll probably be a lot more planned because of how haphazard this whole experience felt for the audience.
Yeah. I think Marvel has got to really be able or be willing to do the thing. What's the thing, Jeff? Look at it from a wrestling perspective. And you too, Mike. You guys are experts. If you're coming from a wrestling perspective and now the crowd doesn't like you, when your logo comes up, they're booing you. Okay, what's the thing to do? What's the thing to do?
Say that you have cancer and go away for a few years.
Go away for a while.
Yeah.
I think that's just what has to happen. If you, Marvel, you can't write your way out of this. You've got to really take a break. Let us miss you for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Let us miss superhero movies for a little bit. It's just what needs to happen. I mean, we say this all the time. Wrestling is just like everything. It's marketing, it's performance, it's showmanship. It's just like, I think it's time Marvel just took a step back. They got Deadpool coming out next year, and that's it. I dare them. Do only that.
Right.
Let us miss you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's got to happen.
That's official,
That's
right?
exactly what you do when someone's being shoved down your throat. Either the audience takes a break or the character takes a break.
Yeah.
It always comes back to pro wrestling.
It always comes back to pro wrestling.
It always comes back to pro
every
wrestling.
subject. This is
my first answer was going to be wear the jersey of the local sports team, but I think that's a short-term fix.
That's another option.
Yes. But next Ant-Man poster is it's all localized. He's wearing local jersey shirts.
It's just what's got to happen. Marvel needs to really bite the bullet. You need to get somebody with a wrestling perspective to go to the Marvel pitch room and be like, look, right now the crowd is tired of you. You need to go away for a little bit.
Yeah.
You need to go away for a little bit and then come back out of the blue. Do that shit that fucking Netflix did. Drop a trailer on the Super Bowl and be like, by the way, new Marvel movie next month. You know what I mean?
That would work really well.
I want to see John Krasinski walk out as Reed Richards wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey, and that's all I fucking want.
Yeah. Tony Romo is the thing.
Out, Dallas Cowboys jersey gets all big.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's just we're 35, 40 movies in. You know what I mean? It's just what happens. You got to give us a break.
They only have two things coming out, right? In 2024 is Deadpool, and then show-wise is Echo, which almost feels like it's just a little bit of a...
It looks cool to me. I'd like to watch it.
And it's only a 5-episode series, too. So.
And they said it's dropping all at once.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Mario. I think that's why it just hit me when you said that. You guys are schooling me live on air. I think they're doing it like, we're just going to get it out and just put it out there. We're not going to have you wonder. We're not going to drag you along for 5 weeks in case it doesn't work. Just plop. And then Deadpool, and everyone's going to have fun because Deadpool's going to do great because, like you said, everybody missed Deadpool because he's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
So I think that one is a lock to succeed.
And what is that whole thing? I don't know the proper term, but it's just like there's like the creation of the myth and then the deconstruction of the myth and the reinvention of the myth, all that stuff. It's like we're in the reinvention of the myth phase. We need
the heroes. You're talking about the hero's journey.
You know what I'm talking about, Mike.
Marvel crossed the threshold when they made their first $1 billion Avengers movie, and since then they've been descending into the underworld, and now they need to face their shadow in order to escape the underworld and return above ground.
Yeah, and they need to be the ones that reinvent what they do, because like you got stuff like The Boys, which I think is brilliant. It's my favorite show. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's deconstructing the hero myth. They need to do that themselves and then bring it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they need to delve into that and
from a business perspective, they need to not make $10 billion with that franchise in a year, so that going into the subsequent year, shareholders are not expecting that $10 billion as a baseline.
Yeah.
And then another $10 billion, because that's how fucking mega businesses work.
Yeah.
They need to get the franchise rotation right so that one year they're making $10 billion off Marvel. The next year, they're making $10 billion off Star Wars. The year after that, they're making $10 million off of, Disney live action. Whatever that cadence is that works for them, they've got to spread out the wealth, because nobody cares about any of that shit anymore because it's all happening at once all the time.
You got to make us miss you. You got to make us pop for the trailer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all goes back to Batman 1989. When the Batman 1989 trailer hit, Jeff, I know you saw it in the theater.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
You'd never seen anything like it.
Floored everybody.
Yeah. we need to come back to that. You need to just let superhero movies take a break.
That was 9, and before that, 9 years before that was Superman 2.
Superman 2.
9 years.
And then you had Superman 3 and 4 in there, which, I'm partial to 3, but 4 is awful. So I don't know. I just think you have to really bite the bullet and say, look, we've made a bunch of these. We need a break. Disney is a huge corporation. They could hire brilliant writers to write original premises for them, yet they don't.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
People will be throwing, it's like amazing pitches that they could make, probably way cheaper. They got to try it.
So many people need to be fired.
I still just go back to the introduction of, instead of doing like dedicating themselves to creating TV shows as their tier 2 properties, just having a Blumhouse style production studio that's making low cost properties, regardless of the platform. I don't care what the platform is, but they need to have a low budget strategy for these long tail stories that they're trying to tell, so that the big budget movies feel differentiated.
An event.
And
Create
they
an
stand
event.
out. They're differentiated. Yeah.
Well, look what they did with Werewolf by Night. That was a perfect example of something that was unique and didn't really tie in, and it was still Marvel in a way.
Perfect. I think they should do more of that. I watched that. I knew it was going to be, annual viewing, and then they're like, we're going to do it in a kind of a different color this year. And I watched that one twice.
And
I just really enjoyed it.
That's a TV show. That's a great TV show. But
one
when they
episode
make these
and that's it.
mini Marvel movies for TV, I just think it, like I said, we've said it a million times, it devalues what they're trying to do with movies,
Well, yeah, and I think they're taking those notes, right? Daredevil got pulled back.
Iger is on this. He's watching right now. He's one of the 2 viewers.
Taking these. Hold on. Let's jot this down.
Bob, you've been looking for a fat man to play the Thing, right? Well, I'm camera ready.
That's right.
I am the commander.
Oh man. Well, we're I didn't know if we were going to go home on a Christmas spot, but this is somewhat of a Christmas spot, but it's a little heavy spot. We'll do what Mario was calling. This is going to be an Iron Claw Christmas. You guys want to jump into that spot?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Mike, you didn't get a chance to see it, right?
I did not, but I'm
you're familiar with the story, so.
Oh yeah.
Man, it's again, if I was still kind of rattling around with Poor Things in my brain until I saw Iron Claw. And I'm already ready to see it again, but feel-good movie is not the right term, but it's a beautiful piece of cinema that has its flaws. And Mario, I agree with you. I think the wrestling audience the newer wrestling audience is probably going to be the harshest critic of this movie, where the wrestling took a backstory, and this was a story about family, where he just, Kevin, when he finally talked to the director, we watched the Q&A, he's like, Kevin, just like, I don't care what you do with the movie, it just needs to be shown how much I loved my brothers. And I think he did that.
Yeah. I think that, first of all, I did enjoy the movie, and as a wrestling movie, it's one of the best of all time. As like a piece of cinema, contemporary pop cinema, I think that I feel like I can't gauge it properly because of my wrestling fandom. You know what I mean? I think that I did feel a little bit disappointed as to how much story was left on the table. I felt like it moved really fast in a world of 3-hour movies becoming a regular thing. I could have used another hour in this 2-hour movie
easily. Not having Chris Von Erich in there at all was very distracting.
It's hard, it's like I do love it. I love it, but I really I wonder from a wrestling fans' perspective what they would feel about it. You know what I mean? Because it is a downer. It is a big downer. And once I felt it was really fast, it was accelerated. It just moved so fast.
Yeah.
Even from like the first, and I don't know, should I do the spoilers thing? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
I was listening to the Bruce Pritchard review earlier today, and they opened it up with, it's like the Titanic, right? Everybody dies, right? So it's just like the Titanic. You know that going in, right?
Yeah.
And
Two
that's
tapes.
facts.
It just felt like from the very quickly it got to like I felt weird when Zac Efron as Kevin very early in the movie is like, Dad's too hard on Mike. I was like, we don't have the context for that. Like it just felt accelerated, and I thought that this was very much shooting to be a commercial film. You know what I mean? This wants to be a movie that reaches everybody. And you've got a very intricate, tragic story, you know? So I don't know from a regular person's perspective how this is. I loved it, I enjoyed it, and I have problems with it as a wrestling fan. And I'm going to go with it from that. And I'm going to watch it 2 or 3 more times in the theater.
Easily.
So, I mean, I don't know what that review means. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if that's positive or not, but it's just like I'm going to buy 2 more tickets to it. I'm sure.
I had the same exact thoughts. Driving to the theater, I just had this, and I struggle with my wrestling past. I struggle with it a lot. You know, a lot of just like what could have been, what might have been, what did happen, what didn't happen, what it's really like to be on the road versus what people really think it's like on the road. And it just hit me. I'm driving to the theater, and I just realized, holy shit, I'm in danger. I'm emotionally in danger because I bled outside that building. I cried outside that building. I've cheered and had moments of so much hope outside this building. So when they showed the Sportatorium and I could see the corner, and props to their, department that made it look identical. It looked identical. Like I felt myself in that parking lot on a Friday night when I was there, and I realized I'm in danger because if I see this, I might just, it takes a lot for me to not emotionally just collapse from what I thought my life was going to be versus what it turned out to be, which I'm not saying it's bad, but when you have these expectations when you're little. And then to see Kevin on there, I mean, in that very freaking hallway, I talked to Kevin Von Erich on that match, and he's like, I think Rico Suave would have been a hell of a babyface for Dad. I think we could have booked you with Gino. And I can hear him in there. So then even looking at Zac Efron, I was like, it got me emotional because I was just like, Kevin was really that nice, innocent guy. Because I mean, I was brought in there to make Kevin Von Erich look good, not because they were trying to get me over. And then just in the hallway, he decides, and Carrie did the same thing with me. They decided I was one of them that are like, oh, you're back in this locker room in this special, very special building, this rat-infested building that so much magic happened. Yeah. So you must be one of us. I'm going to make you feel like you're at home. So when they were talking about how innocent and wholesome Kevin was, it's just like, I'm a virgin, that stuff. I was just like, I believed it because I knew it. I was just like, so I was scared. But then what slowly happened was when I got into the theater, it no longer became it was no longer about my past. It became a Von Erich experience really fast. And then all of a sudden I went from, I used to wrestle there and I'm this wrestler to I'm just a fan again. And now I felt like I got to see some behind the scenes stuff. And you heard the stories, man. Like you heard the stories about Fritz and how rough he was. Like I tell people all the time, there was this one story that Black Bart told me that he's just like, yeah, Fritz used to tie the boys up by their feet and make them wrestle each other upside down, and just tussle them back and forth just to make themselves tough. I was just like, as a dad, like you're treating your boys like piñatas, and it came across in the movie. It's just like he was so afraid of this curse that if you're strong, nothing can hurt you. And that means sometimes when they had the football scene, and he's like, that's how you hit. Carrie knocked the crap out of his brother. They were just like, you have to be tough. You're not going to just like, Dad didn't say, I love you. We didn't hug, and then just him crying at the end. So I think I was really worried that this director wasn't talking to them until the very end of the film and it was already done. But then when you found out that Kevin says, I just wanted to show how much I love my brothers, then I was like, okay, then mission accomplished.
Yeah. totally. I mean, again, I have mixed feelings on this movie because I love it, but I have notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like any of your loved ones, I love you, but I have notes. You know what I mean? It's just
that would be great vows. Just send I do love you, but I have some notes.
Autobiography one day.
It's just what it is. You know what I mean? That's where it was, and I think that I don't remember the director's name, but I feel like him and A24 were really aiming for a commercial movie for A24. But I feel like this might have benefited from being a truly commercial movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just adding a little more of razzmatazz, a little pizzazz. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It leaned really hard into the sad stuff, which is part of it.
Yeah.
But it didn't lift the happy stuff that much. You know what I mean? Like
I
that was
agree.
missing.
Because they really did rush showing like early world class to all of a sudden the Freebirds versus the Von Erichs feud. That little period of time when Mercer was talking to Fritz, is like ESPN wants to book you. You got to remember, this was at a time where Vince was trying to go nationwide. It was still territories.
Now, Jeff, that was the show you were on, right?
Well, which one?
The ESPN.
I was on the ESPN one, but
show.
it was after. So he sold.
You were on Global.
Yeah, it was after they were sold.
Yeah,
so same ring, same everything, just no longer run by Fritz.
Yeah,
but there is a school of people that think if World Class would have gotten a few more television deals, they easily could have beat out Vince because of the boys, because of the Von Erich boys were so over. They think they could have basically did what ended up Hulk Hogan doing, right? And they were all racing. So they had that deal with ESPN, right? And then Jim Crockett had that deal with Turner and TBS, and Vince was just trying to get his tapes everywhere. And then he got that deal with USA, and then he was trying to buy people out. But that was only a sliver in time of that movie and how big World Class truly did get. I mean, it got huge. And I think it would have benefited to show that. Like, did you notice MJF got an executive producer credit in there?
Yeah.
And he played Lance Von Erich, which was a pretty big part of the Von Erich story.
Yeah.
Right? Because, we picked up on it a little. It's just like you noticed when they were showing the house shows were down. There wasn't as many people in the crowd when Lance was in there. But they were desperate because they're like, well, Mike is sick, he can't do it, and then they cut Chris Von Erich out completely. He was too young. Like, we need another Von Erich ASAP. So then they created that guy, who MJF didn't play it, and they to me that was a pretty important piece to cut out.
Yeah,
I mean, Chris, unfortunately, maybe they're like, okay, this is just too many people, unaliving themselves.
We talked about this. I would have loved to see this. I mean, I understand why a movie has to be paced the way it is. I get it. But I think I would have loved to see this be 6 or 8 episode series.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 episode on each brother, and an episode on Fritz and an episode on the mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just like a different way to approach this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. As soon as I got back from the movie, I threw on Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I watched. The Von Erichs episode of Dark Side of the Ring. And there's a lot of tabloid stuff that is left out. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff's left out. But I think that adds to the drama. You know what I mean? It gives the characters depth. They were flawed. They weren't superheroes. And I think that's missing from this movie. And I would have loved to see a series where we really get into that. And we get, we don't combine the 2 younger brothers.
Yeah,
I thought
that was distracting.
I thought there was nothing about Lance. It was just a throwaway. I would have loved to see if you're the HBO showrunner, you do a whole episode just about the curse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you delve into it. You go back to Grandma Von Erich in the 1920s and what happened there and how the curse came about. You know what I mean? Or something. Obviously, you're gonna sensationalize it. You're gonna create a story there. But I just think it felt rushed. Mind you, I love it.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have notes. That's just where I'm at, you know? I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it again probably this weekend.
I'm going to watch it multiple times, and for sure I want to see it again one more time in theaters. I feel like I almost need this film deserves a solo viewing. Just go by yourself and just be immersed in it to see how you feel.
Yes.
And Brian, you grew up in Texas, right? So I mean, you were quite aware of Von Erich fever, right?
I was a little. I mean, I grew up, back when I was watching wrestling as a child. It was right at the height of Hulkamania Warrior kind of thing, and I was more on the tail end of that.
Oh, so that was the tail end.
So I was coming into like 90. Shawn Michaels, Rockers, that kind of stuff. That was kind of like where my introduction. Okay. But because my stepfather had watched it, so he was kind of like the one telling me about, the Von Erichs and about like the Iron Sheik and things like that, because it had all come before me. And because I was, 8 years old and he was wanting to connect, he was telling me all the stories about the wrestlers of like from back when he was kind of in that kind of range. So that's where most of my history came back. And then, as an adult, I've gone back and learned more and more and more and stuff. But I didn't grow up with it as necessary because I was kind of in that tail end of the WWF coming into like the whole exiting. Hulk was still around, but it was finally starting to see, Bret Hart, Undertaker, seeing that kind of that
the steroid trials.
Yeah, that kind of that 80s pop version towards the tail end, because I was a late 80s kid watching wrestling.
There's things in this movie I think that work really well, but are just undercut by the short running time.
Yeah. And it was over 2 hours too.
It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, but it's just it's not enough.
No, it didn't feel like 2.5 hours.
It's not enough.
I can tell you that.
What the scene that stands out to me in particular is Maura Tierney as the mom, when she has that scene where she kind of has a little breakdown where she's I can't wear this dress again. I just wore it to the last funeral.
Yeah.
And people will recognize it. And that's a brilliant scene. Like, that's harsh. Yeah. And I don't know if that's based on a real story, whatever.
I think it is.
But the fact that in the movie's runtime, you just had another funeral like 5 minutes ago undercuts that.
Right.
You know what I mean? You just, it's just.
You think that's why they cut out Chris? Because there was just too many funerals in one film?
That feels like a studio note. I think we can blame A24 for that. But I mean, I think
yeah.
Because for A24, this is a commercial film. You got High School Musical guy. Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. I think I just, yeah.
I think do you and I my answer is yes. Little gold statue, at least in the running for Zach.
I don't think so. No, not the way this movie was.
Not even Golden Globe.
Not the way it was cut. No. I think the editing really undercut this movie, honestly.
And they're not getting the buzz that they were looking for. And A24 is one of the best. I mean, they're the last two best pictures, right? So they're the best at working these awards. It sounds like there's a little bit of a hesitancy from the from the awards, community around the movie itself because of what, Mario was mentioning. Also, there's still a little bit of a stigma for Zac Efron. He's only done a few dramatic roles, and they are so protective of those awards that I think you probably have to be more than Ted Bundy and Von Erich to kind of cross that threshold.
Yeah.
So that stigma is probably there. And I personally just think that based on what I've heard about the acting performances in the movie, that there's a ton of great acting performances in it, but that the amount of gear that these actors are on is a little bit distracting in terms of the performance.
Possible. Zac Efron looks like a He-Man action figure for most of the movie.
Yeah. That's exactly what I've heard over and over again, and I feel like a bunch of thin or fat or medium-sized people with Napoleon complexes down in Hollywood making, that's not going to be the thing that they are aspiring to be.
Yeah.
They're gonna like the Ric Flair and Harley Race characters in there, though, which were body accurate, or at least
body, but not hairline accurate for Ric Flair.
No.
I'm also super curious to see if this film is almost like a precursor into a series of dramatic wrestler biopics, because they're really like, with all the stories we know about wrestling and these lives that these folks have lived in public, there's a surprising lack of any real wrestler biopics outside of Saraya, right? Like, Saraya, Queen of the Ring, and the Iron Claw are the only three real wrestler biopics.
Yeah.
When WWE Studios could control the narrative
I know. That's pretty
the assets
bizarre,
that they
right?
own by making movies about them.
I would have loved, and this is just my post wrap up. I feel like this movie, if I could go back in time, or I would like Sean Durkin take this to a big studio, take this to Paramount, Universal, one of those, and let them do their commercial magic on it, and like push it into a realm where it's just like we can love it and not just be saddened by it. You know what I mean? I think the trailer promised so much. The trailer is so awesome. It's my favorite trailer of the year. And I think that it didn't give us that Hollywood sort of like pep. You know what I mean? And I think it promised that. That's just my opinion. I think this would have benefited by, instead of A24 trying to commercialize their product, this would have benefited by Sean Durkin going to an actual commercial studio and have them do their magic on it. You know what I mean?
Fair.
You've already got such a sad story. You know, let somebody spruce it up a little bit. That would have been that's my take after seeing it.
No, I 100% agree. Like I said, I loved it, but I had notes. Is pretty much sums it up of what you expect. But it's definitely worth seeing in a theater. Like, I don't think you should wait to see it at home or in streaming, unless you can find a way to just be immersed and really feel what I think Zach did capture at the minimum of just like how important family was to Kevin, who is the center point of this entire film.
Yeah.
How important his brothers were. I mean, I got gutted because they didn't have a funeral for Carrie. I mean, but that whole, they let that one play out on the screen, which was rough. A few of the other ones were just like, it was in passing, and it was like all of a sudden it happened. With Carrie, you heard the shot, and you saw him run, and you heard it there, and then you saw the confrontation with the dad, with Fritz.
Yeah.
That one gutted me, man.
Yeah. And, I would have loved to see more on Fritz. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that his motivation was not established that well. You know what I mean? This is the guy that was so driven that he pushed, he was like the driving force behind all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought that's interesting. That's what I'm saying. An 8-episode series where you can really get into it and delve into the the not so friendly topics about all this. Because I just, man, I don't know. I really want to hear a non-wrestling fan's perspective on this. Whether or not they're satisfied by what goes on.
That's a really good, yeah.
I've heard mixed things. Some like it, some don't. So I'd like to hear what they say, but I just think there's so much more. It's just like, that first scene, Fritz is living in the trailer. There's so much more there.
Yeah.
The trailer parked out in front of the
arena.
Yeah. It's just, and the boys switched out the new car. I just think that's a move. That's a whole scene right there. I don't know. And it's just like, it doesn't, sometimes it's just like, and this I don't know what could help this, but it's just like, I feel like part of what was missing is just that whole wrestling, sort of like, companionship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
100%. I think.
But I love it.
But you have notes.
But I have notes.
Awesome. Well, I know we were going to go home, B-Rose, with the kind of pop culture moments. I don't know. Do we want to go for it? I do have to wrap up. I do have to catch a ride. Or do you want to come back next week and do it for our New Year's special?
I can do it next week.
You want to do it for New Year's special? Because I feel like we need to do justice and wrap up a strange year for 2023 when it comes to pop culture. I mean, it's really changed everything.
Yeah.
And then it's going to affect 2024 too. So, but yeah, I think that's a good stopping point. Do we want to, during our wrap up here too, want to say what holiday movie that we're going to watch before the end of the year? What's the holiday movie that kind of represents the holiday for you? As fast as before the song ends.
I mean, it's two very different things. I've watched most of my holiday stuff, but I just talked to you a second ago about it. I think I'm going to go home and guilty pleasure watch To Grandmother's House We Go, the Olsen Twins Christmas movie. I bought it. I'm going to sit my daughter down. I'm going to force her to watch it, and I'm going to watch that and Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, and I'm just going to enjoy some trash Christmas movie.
I love it. Mike, what do you got? You got anything cooked up? Any nostalgic watches or...
No, I don't think I'm going to engage with Christmas media this year.
No. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm making a thing, so I'm planning on filming a music video.
I can't wait. Yes, I can't wait.
That'll be my big...
I'd love for you to
let us premiere it here.
I was going to say, if we can help premiere that here.
Absolutely.
We have your other one that's on here tagged, and I'm excited about this next one. I'm going with a review of Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special because I've really been enjoying that soundtrack. But to just go back to that one encapsulated moment of time and then just move on, that's the way to go. Mario, what do you got?
Lethal Weapon. Again.
All right. So, one did strike me. If I am going to consume any one piece of Christmas media, it will be the Hey Arnold Christmas special episode.
Yes! Hey Arnold! I love it.
That one's so good. He's trying to get the gift for Mr. Wynn. He has to buy all of the gift lists from this person that has the information about his long-lost daughter. It's Christmas Eve. They don't have the Spumoni boots, but Helga gets hers early, and she overhears Arnold talking and leaves the Spumoni boots there so that he can get the full Christmas list to this guy who has the information about Mr. Wynn's daughter, and it's a lovely, lovely feeling.
Oh man, I love that, and that's just gonna, again, that's your. I love these hidden gems. These hidden gems. What's really makes it. And in the end, we're all just in this one. Even though we're together, we're in this encapsulated moment, and we need that one thing, whether it's past.
Music's over, Jeff.
Okay, yes. So we will see you next week.